Before I get into my story, I would just like to thank you for helping me to make sure that my story sees the light of day. I know it's been more than a month in the making, and throughout that time, I've tried my best to accurately portray exactly what has happened to me over the past 10 years. I started out as a 55-year-old retiree, all the dreams in the world of being able to finally start to settle down. Time and time again, I hear it. Guys talking about not being able to be who they really are, be it through external pressures, forcing them down a particular path, or constraints placed on them by their financial position. Either way, I was no different. Yet I suppose what I did with my retirement could only be described as being complete insanity. If you were to call me the most stupid person the world has ever known, I don't think you'd be far off accurately describing what a complete buffoon I was. When I turned 55, I'd not once left America. I wouldn't say I was one of those people who would not be able to point out particular countries in the world. I wasn't that ignorant, but I was someone who believed that the world outside of America was backwards and strange. I've since learned that these opinions I held were nothing more than inaccurate delusions, based on years of being spoon-fed nationalistic nonsense. Don't get me wrong, America was, is, and always will be the best country to have ever existed, yet that doesn't mean there are no alternatives. It doesn't mean that just because you're from there, just because you love it as much as I do, that you have to remain. I can be a patriotic American and live in a different country, yet in my current state, I don't know if living in a different country is actually worth it anymore. What I'm trying to say is that as much as I love America, I was ready to retire, and I simply couldn't afford to retire there, so it only made sense to look for alternatives. The Philippines was always a country that interested me. You would watch a television show, one stands to mind even today, where they were following the exploits of an American who was travelling to the Philippines because he met someone from there online. I always found shows like this to be very derogatory, exploiting the ignorance that people like me had about that part of the world. I saw the guys who are featured in these programs as people who wanted nothing more than to seek a better life for themselves. It wasn't that they were seeking more money, status, or anything like that. They were seeking love and affection, and a partner who they could grow old together with. I always rooted for the guys featured in shows like that, even though they were more often than not looking and being displayed as being desperate, somehow misinformed individuals who had no business trying to find love somewhere else. It was as if they were being told, if you can't find love in America, you have no right to try and find love anywhere else. I never thought that was fair, and I was drawn to the Philippines because I thought I might have a chance to finally find the one thing that had eluded me throughout my life. A partner to finally settle down with and start a new chapter of my life. While I don't think there is anything wrong with these opinions that I held, I thought that because I was open to doing something different, that the people who I was going to involve myself with would also be going into the relationship thinking it was a positive way to improve their lives as well as mine. I had no idea it was their sole focus to improve their lives, even if that was at the detriment to mine, and that was the biggest mistake I made. I'm saying this because I think it's only fair to tell you the absolute truth. At 55 years old, I had never had a relationship in my life. It's not that I didn't try. It's not that I didn't want a relationship. I always wanted one, yet I never found myself in a position where this became a reality. I am very embarrassed to admit that, but it's only right that I tell you the truth, and perhaps you will understand that this might be one of the main reasons for me doing what I did. I was always and still am a very shy person. I'm extremely introverted. I'm not good around other people. It's not because I want to be like that, or because I'm trying to be awkward or different. It's because I was physically unable to force myself to do things that most other people seem to do as normal. But it was because of the way I was, and the lack of affection I had throughout my entire life that the Philippines called out to me as being a place where I could completely become someone else, be who I always wanted to be, and cram into my life all the things that I'd missed out on ever since I left school. When I was 55 and retired, I had reasonable savings. Reasonable for me meant $400,000, and I had a small regular income of about $600, which was from an incident that happened to me earlier on in life that I was still being paid for. You will find out that this 600 is my lifeline. The 600 is what keeps me in this part of the world. But we'll get to that later. About 2 weeks after my 55th birthday, I flew to Manila for the first time. I was a bundle of nerves. Part of me was dreading what I would find when I was there. Maybe it wasn't like I thought it was going to be. All the dreams I had were just that, dreams. I'd never left America. I have to state that fact. I didn't know what the outside world was like. But what I did know was that in the Philippines, I had a chance of happiness. Happiness that I'd never been able to have at home. My first impression, getting to the Philippines, it was an overload on the senses. To say the Philippines is different to where I was from is stating the obvious. It's trying to get across just how different it actually is. This is very difficult to do when you're trying to describe it to someone who's never been. You can see pictures, watch videos, but that only gives you a very small part of the picture. You need to be there, on the ground, to actually understand what it's like. And all the apprehension I felt throughout the flight to get there, as soon as I stepped out of the airport into the chaos that was Manila, all of a sudden I felt like a different person. Even finding myself a taxi. I wasn't shy to walk around and ask people what to do. If I was at home, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Almost as if my personality shifted as soon as I arrived in the Philippines, and I was no longer the same person anymore. Within minutes of walking out of the airport and looking for a taxi, I was a different person. BGC was my destination. The research I'd done had told me that it was like Manila on a light version. The place where you would go when you're not quite yet ready to experience the chaos of the real Manila. Of course, all of Manila is real, but BGC doesn't really reflect what the rest of the country is like. But even still, when I was in my hotel and I went for my first walk around, I was in amazement about what I was witnessing. It's very hard to imagine, if you're listening to this, as someone who has never traveled a lot and experienced a lot of the world. It might be normal to you to go somewhere else. But this to me was like a wake-up call, I think. A wake-up call to tell me you might not have that many years left, and you need to make the most of them. You need to try and claw back all the things you missed out on because you're not the sort of person you are anymore. You seem like a new person in this new country. I spent a few days in BGC without going anywhere else. I was having a great time, but I did want to venture a little bit further. The place I read about where I wanted to go the most was in Makati, the famous nightlife area along P. Burgos Street that so many people went to get their Philippines fix. I was completely shocked when the taxi dropped me off at the foot of the street. I'd never seen anything like it. It was everything people had described it to be, and then some. I didn't know that there were certain connotations that went along with places like that. The girls that worked in the bars, I'd heard all the stories and tales about everything that had gone wrong for many people, and I thought I was going to think slightly differently because I'd never experienced anything even at home, so anything was better than nothing. At least that's what I felt. It's okay for some guy to say you shouldn't meet a girl in a bar. If this guy is comfortable meeting girls in other locations, yet for someone like me, who would never be able to meet a girl anywhere else, it was as if the bars were created for people like me, and I welcomed and cherished them because of that. I think it's unfair to say to a guy, don't meet a girl in a bar, especially when that guy feels like he has no other choice. So I would hope you would be a bit lenient on me now you know that's the case. You might be able to think of a particular time in your life or a particular event that happened to you where you found yourself shaking uncontrollably. Shaking with excitement and also a little bit of fear of the unknown. Yet, as much as a part of you is telling you to go somewhere else, telling you to be careful and don't do anything stupid, there is a bigger part of you telling you to embrace everything that you're currently seeing and take advantage of it, because if you don't, you're going to regret it. This was how I was feeling when I was dropped off in the taxi. As soon as I was dropped off, I was approached by three incredibly beautiful girls. Beautiful is a very subjective term, I get that, but I was never approached by anyone in America, regardless if they were a 10 or a 0. I was never approached. But to me, these girls that were approaching me were all 10 out of 10s. The most stunning girls I'd ever seen, and they were all speaking to me. I knew what the situation was with the girls that were on the streets, and I did politely decline their advances. But the fact that they were approaching me made me let my guard down. I think I did let my guard down, and I decided to just pretend I was looking at myself from the outside, as if controlling myself to do things that I wouldn't have done otherwise. I might be getting too deep here, but if this helps another guy at some point, then it would be worth it. All this ridicule I'll get, bring it on. That was when I walked into a bar. The bar where I met a girl. It was just off P. Burgos Street, and my life would change completely because of it. I'm happy to describe what it was like, but I'm not going to give you the name of the bar, so you will have to have been there to know which one it is. But if you're walking down P. Burgos Street, as if you're walking further afield from the river that runs not too far away, I can't remember what the river's called, but if you picture that river and walk away from the river down P. Burgos Street in that direction and continue down there, turn left and it's one of the bars there. This was my first bar experience. I'd never been in a bar like this before. And you walk in through some curtains and then immediately to the left there was a pool table. To the right there were couch-style seats and a few tables. And then there was a bit of a stage in the middle and different sorts of tables, more like booths on the other side, and the bar was right at the end. I walked in and I tried my level best to stop shaking uncontrollably. I'd never seen anything like this before. And then, when you take a seat and order a drink and a girl comes and sits next to you and introduces herself and shakes your hand, you could say that that was enough to send a guy like me over the edge. It was so great that they could speak English. We could have proper conversations, and although it was only my plan to have one beer and have a bit of a look and then go somewhere else, I had more than one beer and I bought more than one drink for the girl. And then she just stayed with me. It wasn't as if money was an issue. I was retired and I had a decent amount of money, I thought. So I just, opened up saying yes to everything the girl asked me. I'd never done that before, and I would recommend doing something where you find yourself somewhere and just say yes to everything, but maybe not in a place like that. The biggest problem for me, though, was I thought the girls that were working in the bars were doing so, of course, to make money, but I thought that their ultimate goal was to be able to meet someone who could take them out of the bar and maybe start a family and start a life with their new husband. That's what I thought the bars were for, a place to meet people. A place to meet people for people like me who struggled my entire life to meet anybody in any other place. I thought that that's what these places were for guys who struggled and didn't know how to do things any other way. So, when the next morning I woke up at my hotel in BGC and she's making a coffee, I thought I needed to take advantage of the situation and spend more time with her. I thought that, because I was in the bar, I thought she had chosen me as well. Another time, I wasn't aware that this wasn't correct. And you can call me naive, I don't mind that. I'm just telling you the truth about what I thought. And when I saw her there making the coffee, I asked her if she'd like to stay with me for a bit longer. That was arranged, and she stayed with me for a whole week, taking me to lots of places in Manila that I would never have been brave enough to go to by myself. I learned a lot about her family in Leyte, where she was from, her children. They were living with her parents because her ex had left her with nothing, and how she was working where she was to be able to support the family. but she did say she was hoping to be able to meet someone and settle down. When she said that she was looking for that, it got my attention, because that's what I was looking for as well. And it also probably didn't help that I thought this girl was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen. If you add everything together, I suppose I was the perfect mark for a girl like that. Yet, at the time, I was not aware of that. I immediately asked her to stop working in the bar and become my girlfriend. I was very happy to be able to support her financially, because in return, I thought I was getting love and a genuine relationship, which is what I had always wanted. I was happy to play the traditional role, and if that meant I had to give her money, so be it. That is always how things have been throughout time. It's only been not like that for a few years, and things have changed a lot. I think it's because things have changed so much that people like me had such a difficult time back at home. But that is what it was, and I'd already fallen in love with this girl. She was 23, and because it was something going on in my head that I wasn't aware of, but I actually thought that she would have been the person I would spend the rest of my life with. I'd already made my mind up of that fact after she'd only stayed with me for a week, that she was everything I'd always wanted. I didn't want anything else. She was happy that I was able to support her, and we spent another 2 weeks getting to know each other a little bit better. And as I'm saying, I'm just falling more and more in love with her every day. I think the saddest thing is that I didn't even know what I was doing was wrong. I didn't even know what I was doing was stupid. I thought that I'd gone to a place where you go to look for somebody, where you go to look for the sort of person who is not comfortable to do something somewhere else. I also thought she wasn't the sort of person who was able to find someone in the traditional way as well. So in that sense, I thought we were made for each other, and that's why things moved so quickly. You might be picturing a ruthless girl who was displaying all the signs of someone who was only interested in extracting as much money as possible out of a willing mark. You might be picturing a devious individual whose sole purpose was to destroy the lives of foreigners. Yet that's not what she looked like. As I said already, she was incredibly beautiful. She was so sweet. She never raised her voice. She always smiled. She always acted exactly like you would think a nice person would act. Was she a wolf in sheep's clothing? I've heard of girls similar to her being described in a way like that. Yet at the time, I wouldn't have said that. And even after things went so wrong, I still wouldn't believe what she did. Because I actually thought to start with, things were my fault. So I will get to that. After another 2 weeks in BGC together, I needed to get more time in the country. The 30 days was coming to an end that I'd been given when I arrived, so I went to sort that out, and I started looking into other visa options. I understood that there was one if you were married to someone from the Philippines. That would give me a permanent visa, so that was something I was thinking about. I thought I'd already found someone that I would spend the rest of my life with, and the thought of marrying her was high on the cards. But after I had those extra days, I asked her if there was anywhere in the Philippines that she would like to go. She can choose exactly where she wants to, as long as we're going together, and I will pay for the whole thing. She said she'd always wanted to go to Boracay. Apparently, it was a beautiful island a short flight away from Manila. That was good with me, so we flew there 2 days after. We actually had to fly to a neighbouring island and then got a boat across, but it was only a short boat ride. And she was right. What an incredible place. She said she'd always wanted to go and had never been. I thought that was incredible, given the fact that it was so close to where she lived and worked. I don't think I yet understood just how much poorer certain people can be in the world compared to where I came from. We only planned to stay 3 days, and on the 3rd day, I was the happiest I'd ever been. I know people say that all the time, but I genuinely was the happiest I'd ever been. I was in an amazingly beautiful place, with the girl of my dreams, and I thought it was the start of something amazing, and I asked her if she would like to get married. She said she would love to get married, but she said it might be better if we spent a little bit more time together first, if we got to know each other better before we committed to marriage, and that sounded okay to me. What I did tell her was that I wanted to get married to her. I was happy to wait until she was ready, but that didn't mean that I wanted her to look for somebody else. As far as I was concerned, we were boyfriend and girlfriend and would remain that way until we were married, and she said she was fine with that. We spent an extra 4 days there, and that was the best week I've ever lived. It's amazing just how different life can be. I thought that I would always feel that way with her. I thought that she felt for me, and what she felt was real. And yes, that might be lots of people saying she was 23 and you were 55. But there was never any talk that that was a problem. She never mentioned that she had a problem with the age difference. In fact, she said she preferred people who were older because they were more mature and had more experiences in life, and she felt that was better for her and her future. On the last day in Boracay, she said she would love to take me to meet her family in Leyte. She wanted to see if they liked me, and if they did, then she could get married to me. When she brought this up, I was ecstatic. The very fact that she wanted to take me to where she was from, to meet the people that were her family, to me that meant she trusted me enough to know that I was serious with her and that I wanted to spend my life with her. I did tell her on more than one occasion how much I loved her and I wanted to be with her, and I always asked her if there's anything that you need from me, all you need to do is ask. With that in mind, we returned to Manila, and for whatever reason, she said we needed to go on the bus and on a boat to get there. Don't do that if you're in the Philippines. It took over a day travelling from Manila to get there, when we could have flown very quickly, but she just said that's how she'd always done it and how she was comfortable, so I went along with it. I mean, I will tell you how pathetic I was in that case. The fact that I was sitting next to her on the bus, that was good enough for me to sit on it for such a long time. The fact that she was with me on the ferry, that was good enough for me. The huge discomfort, inconvenience, heat, and everything else that goes along with it, that didn't matter because I was with her and that's all I wanted. When we eventually got there, I was worn out. We stayed in a hotel for a few days just so I could get back to my old self. I don't envy people from the Philippines who are forced to travel on buses and public transport to get around the country. Flying is so incredibly cheap as it is. To think that people can't afford $50 for a flight. At the time, I was not even thinking that was a real thing. I think that's where I made the biggest errors. Thinking that she would choose to go on the bus and ferry to get somewhere because she didn't want to fly, because it was a choice, not because it was cheaper. But after 2 days, I was feeling a lot better, and I was ready to go and meet the family. That's when she told me that where she came from was over 2 hours away, a 2-hour drive, and we didn't have our own transport, so we had to find someone to drive for us. It wasn't expensive, about the same price as getting a taxi for 5 miles at home, yet you could go 20 times further in the Philippines for the same price. I was not used to seeing what I was seeing as we drove to see her family. The conditions that people were living in were like nothing I'd ever seen before, and that's when I started to feel sorry for the people. If only I'd have looked at these conditions and then looked to my girlfriend to my side, who I thought was the love of my life, and who I thought was falling in love with me. Then I should have looked back and forth between the two and thought, hang on, is this because she wants to escape these conditions? That's why she's putting up with me? As I've already stated in this story, it's been a long time in the making, just trying to get it perfect because it doesn't end in the Philippines. It's got multiple aspects to it, and I did so many things without understanding that the people I was doing them with were doing them because it was a way for them to escape just how difficult their lives were. I had no idea at the time, and I'm happy to be called naive because of that. When we pulled up to her house, I said something that I regret. Even after everything that happened, I still regret what I said. But at the time, I didn't even know what I was saying was wrong. I thought what I was saying was right because that's how I felt. But when we pulled up to the house, I said to her, "What kind of animals do your parents keep here?" I honestly thought it was a place where they kept farm animals. Hand on heart, I thought perhaps they kept pigs or cows there overnight. When she told me that that was actually her parents' house, my heart sank, and I said I was so sorry, I had no idea. I really didn't mean it, but I think she knew that I was so inexperienced and so unaware of how different people lived in different parts of the world that I think she just let it slide. But deep down, I think she really resented me because of that. If I could take it back, even now, after everything had happened, I would. I can't imagine how it must have felt like for her to have this guy who was with her asking what animals her parents kept in the house that she had grown up in. I hate myself for that even today, so perhaps in a way what happened to me is karma. Yet I think that may be going a bit too far. But after I had apologized to her for making that mistake, we got out of the car and her parents came and greeted us. I have nothing bad to say about them. They were very friendly. They offered me food, even though it was quite apparent that they didn't really have any money to buy food for themselves, let alone give any to me. But they were open to sharing it, and they pointed to where we were able to spend the night. Her mother and father and 6 of her younger siblings, as well as her 2 kids, lived there, and they all slept outside that night so that I could sleep in the house. They were very kind, yet I think looking back now, it was all just part of the game in order to try to improve their situation, even if it meant using their daughter to do that. But I didn't think I was using them. I thought I was giving all my love, all this love that I had bottled up inside me throughout the whole of my life. I thought I was giving all that to this girl that I'd fallen in love with. And in return, I wanted to make sure that she was happy, and if that meant I had to make her family happy as well, then I would happily do that. We spent a few days there, and as much as it was difficult for me to stay in such conditions, I felt a bigger connection to the girl I'd fallen in love with, and I felt all I wanted to do was save her and her family from the current situation they had. Before you start shouting at the screen saying, "Here we go again, another savior," I didn't know that was a thing. It made logical sense to me to think that I could get married to this girl, look after her and her family, and be respected and loved because of it. I asked her again to marry me when we were there, and she said when the time was right. But first things first, if you are truly happy with me and you're okay with my family, even though you think they live in a house where animals should live, I think we need to spend more time together. I hated when she said that. It wasn't that I thought her family were like that at all. That wasn't what I thought. I just saw the building and thought that's what it was. How was I to know? I'd never left my own country, and I'd never seen anything like that. But when she said that, instead of thinking perhaps she actually really hates me and is hoping to get as much out of me as she can, I thought it was my job to prove to her that it was a mistake and an accident, and I didn't mean it. I mean, I had no chance, especially guys like me. But when she said that, I told her I was sorry and I didn't mean it. But I did say I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and I hope you can forgive me. I can remember her sighing, a really big sigh, and she said, "Let's go and get something to eat and have some drinks. There's a place not too far away right on the beach. Let's go and sit down." I was really happy that she was comfortable enough to allow me to see where she came from. It was such a beautiful place, and we walked for 5 minutes, and all of a sudden we see the ocean. Crystal clear waters, white sands, and nobody in sight. There were a few people there, but it wasn't like a big tourist place. And there was a very small bar/restaurant. It was 100% local style, no tourists inside. You go inside, we had a few drinks. It was warm, the beer. The fridge wasn't working, but I didn't mind. It was an interesting experience to be able to see this. We ordered some food as well, and that's when she started saying that you can see where I'm from. I love where I'm from, and I would love to live here. But at the moment, I have to work because I need money. I need to be able to help my family. Then I said to her, "I've been helping you. I'll happy to help you instead so you don't need to work anymore, and I'm happy to continue with this." I was trying to tell her that as long as she stayed with me, she'd be okay. And then she said, "I don't know if things will work between us because I want to live here and you want to live in Manila." I didn't know she was playing me. I didn't know. "Who said I wanted to stay in Manila?" I said. "Well, that's where you were, and I only asked you to come here, and you only came because I asked." "I love it here," I told her. "This is a great place. I've never been somewhere as beautiful for this, and you're a great girl. I'm happy to be here, and I'd love to live here, and I want to marry you." "They don't really have places to rent that you will be able to live in," she said. "That's the problem." That's why it's taking me such a long time, because I need to save money to be able to build a house here. I want to be able to live here close to my family, and I want my family or my children to live with me. Would you be okay with doing that with me? I asked. I'd never had a family before, and it's something I'd always wanted. And she said, "How do I know if you're serious or not? I can't just stop my job permanently and change my life completely, only to find out that you're not serious and you're just lying just so you can have a good time with me before you go back home." I hated that she said things like that. I had no idea that she felt like that. At the time, I believed that what she was saying was true, and that's what she was thinking. And I just said no. I've waited 55 years to be able to leave where I came from and to start a real relationship, and you're the first person I've ever met and fallen in love with, and I want to spend my life with you. Okay, then she said, let's go back to Manila for a bit and spend a few weeks there, and we'll see how we feel then. That caught me off guard. I was expecting her to say something else, but that reinforced my feelings that she didn't want to rush into a more committed relationship until she was sure that I was serious about her. But I was. So when she said that, I was actually a little bit upset because I thought she still wasn't sure about me. But all I could really say was, let's go. Back in Manila, this time we stayed at a hotel in Makati. I was more comfortable to be able to stay somewhere like that as opposed to BGC. After visiting Leyte, everything felt fantastic and modern and new now as opposed to how things were there. But she stayed with me all the time. She never went back to the bar or went to meet anybody else. She was always with me. But we went out together in the evenings for food and drinks, and I was just happy. That's all I wanted. Happy and hoping that because I'd already committed to her, she would commit to me as well. She didn't talk about anything for the first week. I kept asking her, I really want to know what you want to do. I told her how happy I was and I wanted to stay with her, but I really need to know if that's what you want. She just kept saying that she really liked me. She felt like she loved me, but she wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to leave, and then she'd have to start all over. I kept telling her that that would never happen. I kept telling her I wanted to marry her, and to me that was proof enough that I was serious. And then a few days later, when I was talking about it, we were out having something to eat, and I just said, have you got any ideas? And then she said, what about if we go and live close to where I'm from and we build our own house there? She said that way I'd be able to make sure the house was comfortable enough for me to live in, and she could be where she wanted to be. Would that be okay with me? She said. Does that mean you want to marry me? I asked. Yes, I want to marry you, she said. Of course I do, because I love you. But I think it would be best if we built the house first, and then you can test out living there, and if you like it, we can get married. As I'm writing this now, I am trying to tell my old self I'm being played, but I didn't think I was at the time. Even after everything that had happened, I still didn't think I was, so let that sink in. But I did ask her how much it would cost to build a house. She said we could get some land and build a house for around $75,000. She said it might be best if we just give the money to her and her family and they can start the construction while we're living in Manila. That's a lot of money, I told her. But then she said, I don't know what you want me to say. I love you, but I cannot just live like this for the rest of my life. What happens when you get old and I need to look after you? How can I look after you when we don't have anywhere to live and I don't have anything to help you with? When she said that, I couldn't help but think that what she was saying was actually true. I was 55, which was 32 years older than her. So in 20 years' time, I might be too old to look after myself, and I might need to rely on her and her family to help. So what she was saying did make sense to me. I wouldn't want the person I loved more than anything to struggle if something happened to me. So after thinking about it, I thought it sounded like a good idea, so let's do it. I did say I would prefer to be there when the house was being built. That was my conditions. I want to be there and watch the construction, so I hope you're okay with that. When she said she was, I agreed, and I basically gave her $75,000 to build a house and buy some land. Over the course of the next 5 to 6 months, that's what we did. I'm falling in love with her more and more every single day. I think she's falling in love with me more and more every single day. We found some land which was perfect. We started building a house. It wasn't big, it was just what we needed to have a basic life. 2 bedrooms, a small living room, and a kitchen. That was it. But it was $75,000 for everything. It may have been the case that it was actually less than that, and it was just $75,000 because that's the figure she'd started with, and she was the one that dealt with all the people doing the construction. When the construction was taking place, we were travelling to and from the closest hotel, which wasn't that close, but I was happy with it, and I said as soon as the house was built and we moved there and married, I would buy a car. Everything went downhill very quickly from there, incredibly so that I didn't even know what had happened. When the house was about 90% complete, I wasn't yet comfortable to live in it, but she said she was happy to stay there even though it wasn't quite finished. So I didn't mind if that's what she wanted to do. I would stay in the hotel, she could keep track on the progress, and I would go back every day. The first time she stayed there, the day after, when I came back, she was inside the house and a Filipino guy about her age was there with her. "What's going on?" I said. "Nothing," she said. "Don't worry about it." I just said, "Okay, fine. Hope everything's good," and I got on with things. It was as if I was oblivious to what was going on. Or I knew what was going on, but I just didn't want to think about it. Then it happened again the next day. It's as if she's trying to say, "I'm cheating on you here, I think you need to leave." But I didn't see it. The next day she made it even more obvious. When I walked in and saw it, I'm just thinking to myself, "What are you doing? What's happened?" "Oh, sorry, I got drunk last night and I had a bit of an accident. Don't worry about it, it won't happen again," she said. She said it just like that. Then it twigged that she had actually cheated on me. I saw her with the same guy 2 times before, but I didn't see her in any compromising positions, so I just thought that it was an innocent thing. Yet now I knew that she cheated on me, and of course I was devastated. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I wanted you to stay with me in the house, and I got a little bit drunk, and this happened." Even when she said that, I said, "It's okay, don't worry about it. I still love you, everything's fine. Just please don't do it again." "I will stay in the house now," I said. And she looked at me like, "Okay, that's fine," and we just got on with things. A few days later, when it was quite apparent to her that I was just some kind of complete idiot who was so desperate to have someone in his life that he was prepared to overlook anything, she'd actually said to me, "I think I've made a mistake. I don't really love you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that we've built this house, but I don't love you anymore." Then she did something that was stranger than anything else. She said, "We still have about $15,000 left and I will give this back to you. But I feel so bad, I didn't mean for this to happen. But when you were staying in the hotel and I was alone here, I got a little bit drunk and the person that you saw me with was the father of my children." That hit me like a bombshell. I looked at her and pleaded with her, "Please don't tell me this is true." I told her how much I loved her, how much I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her, and how she was my world. She just said she was so sorry she didn't mean it. But when she saw him, she remembered how much she liked him, and she thinks it's better for her, him, and her children if they stayed together. And she said she would give me this $15,000 back because it's only right. I was heartbroken when she said this. Yet I have to be perfectly clear that I thought everything she was saying in that moment, everything that she'd done up until that point, I thought that these were new feelings she was having with regards to her ex, and she hadn't scammed me. I thought she'd just made a mistake spending time with me and she regretted it, and she wanted to give me some money back to say sorry. I didn't even look at the fact that I was $60,000 less. I'd lost $60,000 by this happening. I just broke down in tears because the thought of losing her meant I wasn't even thinking about the money. Talk about desperation, but that was me. I was a desperate fool who wanted nothing more than to be able to stay with somebody in a relationship that was real. But I remember looking at her with tears in my eyes, just saying, "Is there anything I can do to make you change your mind?" And she started crying as well, saying she's really sorry, but she never thought this would happen. I begged her. I'm embarrassed to admit, but I begged her for hours, "Please change your mind. We can have a great life together always. I'll always look after you." But she then kept saying that she was sorry, it was a mistake. What was I going to do? I didn't know. And then she gave me back the $15,000. I thought at the time that what she meant and what she was saying was that she was actually sorry about what had happened. I thought it meant that she really did love me to some degree, but she thought it would be better for her and her ex and kids if they got back together, and I was just collateral damage. The last thing she said to me was, "I love you so much, but unfortunately it's not going to work out." She also said that I will be able to find someone else and have a good life with them. I had no choice but to return to Manila. I was completely devastated, and I have to be perfectly clear that I was not even thinking about the fact that I just lost $60,000. All I was thinking about was the fact that I lost her. I felt bad that I lost her, and I also felt bad for her that she lost me, but she had to put her kids first. That was how I saw it. That was how I felt when I returned to Manila, where I went to find a hotel in Makati, and I went for a beer the next morning. I didn't even know at the time what had actually happened to me, and I wouldn't even know that what she had done was play me and scam me out of money. I thought it was just a real relationship that had broken down because she chose to do what was best for her kids, even though she wanted to stay with me. That just goes to show how desperate I was, and how well she played me. Yet far worse things happened to me not long after, that finally opened my mind to just how far people will go to try to remove you from your hard-earned money. The worst that happened to me in Thailand, and that comes next.